You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm not Eric. No, I'm Gavin.
He is not Eric, that is right.
I'm Gavin, and I am so excited for this episode.
And we are going to the great city of Dale, Wisconsin. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a bit of a stretch to call it a city, but yes. Yes, we are.
The place.
The place, yes.
So what happens in Dale?
Well, let me just step back from that a moment here.
Okay.
Now, I want to explain what Dale is to people, because I know this is Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, so people probably know, but depending on where you live, you may not know.
Dale is the town that you used to drive through when you went on Highway 10 until they moved to Highway 10.
That's exactly right. In fact, that's the very last line of this episode. You got the conclusion of the episode.
I don't even know. What road is it now?
It's 96 now.
No, it's 96. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's exactly right. So if you take, now it's 96, if you take 96 west out of Appleton, you'll hit Dale. That's what it is. And it's more than an intersection, but it's a block or two. Like, it's very small. And yeah, so just to give people an idea of where it is, because again, if you live in Appleton, you probably know where it is, or at least have heard of it. If you're one of our wonderful listeners who lives in Manitowoc or the UP or, you know, some other country, you're not going to know. So I wanted to at least make sure people know where we're talking about before we started.
And I highly recommend, if you decide after this episode you want to take a trip to Dale just to check it out, I highly recommend everybody stop at the old firehouse, which is now a distillery, and have the key lime pie drink. I don't like alcohol, and I like their key lime pie drink. So
you don't like alcohol?
No, I don't drink alcohol.
I know you don't drink, but you used to drink.
Yeah, but no, the last time I had alcohol, the last time I had beer, it tasted so horrible. I was like totally done.
Really?
And then I hesitated to have this key lime drink because it was like a week later. And I was like, all right, I'll take one little sip. And it was actually really good.
Oh,
so
right.
For somebody who doesn't like alcohol, it's even good.
Okay.
So
Dale.
Because
of the thing that this episode was started by, like why it was going to be written, is only going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to turn this into one of our history episodes.
Love it.
So, the first white settlers come to Dale around 1848. The earliest settlers are from the Hyde, Young, and Hills families. They allegedly reached Dale by walking from Oshkosh on an Indian trail. I have no idea how you verify that, but I mean, it's plausible. The post office was set up around 1850. A man named Cornelius Kuntz was the first postmaster, and they had one mail carrier whose job was to walk between Oshkosh and Hortonville, bringing the mail to and from Dale.
Wow. From Oshkosh to Hortonville?
Yeah.
That's not a short walk, man.
No. But that's not uncommon. I don't know if we've done it on the podcast, but I know I've written about, there was a man whose job, no joke, was to bring mail between Green Bay and Chicago. And he
not on foot. He walked.
He walked. He was given 2 weeks to go one direction and 2 weeks to go back the other direction.
Okay.
And he did that for years.
I'm sorry, maybe you can give me an explanation for this, but like, why would we not walk the mail from like Appleton to Oshkosh, and then from somebody from Oshkosh to Fond du Lac, and then Fond du Lac to some other place, and just keep doing?
Because this was far enough back in time that those were the only places.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah. That was like 1820s time. That was way back before there were other cities.
Gotcha.
Other people came in the first actual land purchase was done by a man named Stephen Balliet. And he opened a sawmill on that land. Another man named Elias Balliet went out and was hunting one day, and he shot a deer that he thought was dead. But then when he went to check on it, the deer said, "Surprise," popped up, gored him to death with its antlers. And where Elias Balliet fell, they built Pine Grove Cemetery.
Okay. So this is how the first cemetery in Dale came to be.
That is the story. I will say Elias Balliet, I went there and I looked. Elias Balliet, is in Pine Grove Cemetery, and he is kind of in the middle of the cemetery. So if that's actually true, that they buried him on the spot and then built it around him, it looks like how it would be done.
Well, and it could be just by the placement of his grave. That's the story that came out.
It could be.
This could be as realistic as Cape Blood.
It's possible. But also, the cemetery, is not in, it's in Dale, in the town of Dale, but it's not in Dale. It's easily a mile outside of town. Mm-hmm. So it would be strange that the cemetery is that far out from everything else. Settlers are coming in the 1850s, and then Dale is formally made a town officially in 1853, breaking off from the town of Hortonia. It was platted, and they said, let's bring in the railroad. So they want to bring in the Manitowoc and Mississippi Railroad. There is a little hesitation on that because the Manitowoc and Mississippi ends up consolidating with the Wisconsin Central, but then once that whole process goes through, the Wisconsin Central Railroad comes on through and finally reaches Dale in 1872. This actually does a great deal to promote Dale, and Dale grows for a while. There is a neighboring community next to Dale called Medina, mm-hmm. and Medina was sort of a friendly rival. There's a big overlap of where these families settled. So much so where it's really hard to keep the history straight of whether somebody's in Dale or Medina because they're kind of considered the same place.
Okay.
But after the railroad comes in, Dale becomes the predominant place. Now Medina's just this outside place that doesn't have the railroad. So sorry, guys. No trains for you. From what I could tell, the predominant group of people who came in were Pennsylvania Dutch, which is a German group that came from Germany, settled in Pennsylvania for a while, and then came on through and settled in other places, in this case, in Dale. There were two main families. One is the Levy family, and one was the Balliet family. The Levy family is Pennsylvania Dutch. The Balliet family, the name Balliet is French, but they married into the Pennsylvania Dutch, and they came over with them too. So, okay. And that's also where the name Medina comes from, because on the way from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin, they stopped in Medina, Ohio. And then when they got to Wisconsin, they said, well, we like the name Medina in Ohio. Let's just name this place Medina too.
That's a funny story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why it's named Dale, I don't know. My assumption is it was just probably the shape of the land. It was probably a dale. Which, nobody really uses that word anymore, but, that's, I'm guessing, because it is kind of in a little valley. In February 1903, a smallpox infection went through town. The school was closed for 2 months, which kept 47 students in the principal home. At the end of that year, 2 students were given diplomas, both members of the Balliet family, which kind of indicates how big each class is. This is a one-room schoolhouse. Mm-hmm. So the fact that only 2 of them reached, graduating status at the end of the year is, these are really small. The Catholic Church reached town in 1910. There had previously been a Lutheran church going back to 1859. The Lutheran church is still there. The Catholic Church I couldn't find, so I don't know if they came and went, but I don't know if there's a Catholic Church there now. Dale had a second boom, and I'm using boom a little bit of an exaggeration here, because the railroad was a boom, but it was like, I mean, it didn't become a major city. It never was a major city.
Right.
But the railroad helped. It had a second little burst there in 1912, when the original path of the Transcontinental Yellowstone Trail came through.
Okay.
The Yellowstone Trail was a 3,719-mile road that went from Plymouth, Massachusetts to Seattle, Washington. Or Seattle, Washington to Plymouth, Massachusetts, if you're going the other way.
See, no, I feel like I've seen signs for this before.
You probably have.
So this does still exist, huh?
Not officially, but some of the signs are still there.
Okay.
Yeah. So originally, this is 1912. Roads did not generally have numbers. They often didn't have names, and they were largely privately run. Somebody would say, hey, I'll build a road for this, and then they'd get paid and they'd build a road. They weren't maintained by, the local government.
Right.
The route was indicated by yellow stripes on trees, yellow arrows on barns, and it was privately managed by the Trail Association. When the state did take over roads, it became State Highway 18 in 1919, and then later changed to US 10 when it went from a state highway to a national highway in 1926.
Okay. So 1926, wow.
1926, Highway 10 goes through, but it already had a road in 1912. It was just a private road. But that's the thing, listeners have to keep in mind, there aren't a lot of cars in 1912.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going through Wisconsin, you might have gone through Dale because there aren't a lot of roads. And you can look up where the trail was. You could still technically take it. It's kind of like from Dale, it's like due west to Minnesota. It goes down through North Fond du Lac and out through, like Racine and Kenosha.
And what is it? It's just random roads now, basically?
It's mostly random roads.
Okay.
I mean, a huge part of it is Highway 10.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily exactly the same as it was then. Because, it's over 100 years ago. Roads have shifted so much. A man named John E. Kling lived in Dale. He went off to fight in World War I, and he was killed on November 11th, 1918. November 11th, 1918, just so happens to be the very final day of World War I. So, bad luck for that guy. Just had to make it a couple more hours, but he didn't. His body was shipped back to the U.S. The funeral was the largest in Dale history, with 100 cars in the procession. There were many pallbearers, a large turnout from the American Legion, the Red Cross, even 3 veterans from the Civil War who were still alive. The American Legion was then renamed the John Kling Post of the American Legion in his honor. He was the only one from Dale to die in World War I. Totally unrelated to anything. But John E. Kling, had he lived, would have been the uncle of a man named Leroy Summers.
Okay.
This would be his sister's child.
And why does that name ring a bell to me?
Because
I feel like we did an episode with him or
we
something.
We did.
Okay.
So Leroy Summers, this is our other podcast, our Milwaukee Mafia podcast.
Okay.
Leroy Summers was involved in the cheese industry in the Fond du Lac area. And he officially died of carbon monoxide poisoning in his car.
Okay.
But his widow believed that he was killed by nefarious forces in the cheese industry.
So the big cheese company took out her husband to kill his small cheese company.
That is her belief.
Her belief. We do not believe that.
I don't personally believe that. Yeah. Nephew of Dale's huge war hero is mafia cheese victim.
And see, everything is just connected.
Everything connects eventually. Everything connects eventually. Okay, so general background there on Dale, how Dale came to be, things coming in. World War I veteran. Well, I guess he wasn't really a veteran because he didn't make it out. I guess you don't become a veteran if you die. But
you become a war hero instead.
War hero. Smallpox epidemic, all the fun stuff. Now we get to why this episode was proposed. Ava Harriet Millard grew up in New London, the daughter of Alfred Millard. Again, for people who don't know the area, New London is like on the border of Outagamie and Wapaka County. I suppose it's probably the biggest city to Dale. Maybe Appleton is, but I feel like New London might be a little closer to Dale. Mm-hmm. So just kind of idea. If you're driving into a bigger town to go shopping, New London might be the place you go. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in June 1932, she marries Harold Clone, the son of Charles Clone of Caledonia. I should clarify in this case that Caledonia is a very tiny place in Wapaka County. Kind of confused me because when I think Caledonia, I think Racine.
Yeah, okay, so it's the same city. It's the same name, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where my head went immediately. So there's actually 2 Caledonias.
No.
No?
There's 4 Caledonias.
there was another city I looked up the other day, too, and I saw the same thing. There was like 3 of them in Wisconsin. Liberty. There's like 3 Liberty, because you had mentioned Liberty in a podcast, and there's like 3 Liberties in Wisconsin.
See, when I think Liberty, I think Manitowoc.
Okay. And there's one like out by Green Bay, I think, and then there's another one somewhere too.
Yeah. So yeah, I read this and I'm like, Caledonia. I'm like, that's by Racine. So I look it up, and this Caledonia is in Wapaka County, but there are actually 4 places called Caledonia in Wisconsin. The one in the Wapaka County is probably best known as being the home to the Rawhide Boys Ranch.
Okay.
I don't even know if that's still there anymore, but if you're familiar with the Rawhide Boys Ranch, that would be in Caledonia. Well, anyway, so she marries this guy. They go to live on his family farm with his parents for a while. They later moved to New London, but they kept close ties to the Dale area. Harold was the head of the Dale Fire Department. I don't know how big the fire department is in Dale, but as you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like there is a fire department there, or was.
Yeah, there still is.
There still is.
They built a new fire department. When you come into Dale from Appleton, it's right on one side of the road. It's all volunteer and stuff, obviously, but yeah.
Okay. So Harold was the head of the fire department. Also, he was the parts manager in Dale for the J.I. Case Company, because the fire chief isn't really a full-time job when you're a volunteer.
Yeah.
Ava was involved in the Dale Bank, and she was part of the local church ladies group. So, they're active in Dale. I throw this in there. This is where I would take a drink. I don't have a beverage today. I don't have a beverage, but this is where I would take a drink. I'd say, when their son was married in 1969, it was at the Dale Lutheran Church, and the maid of honor for their son's wedding was a woman from Kaukauna.
Of course it was. Nice.
And actually, there's a bit to that. I don't know if I can say it on air, but the woman from Kaukauna is a close relative of somebody we know.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait to hear this offline.
Yeah. Harold Clone, the fire chief, died on May 23rd, 1970 at age 59, leaving behind his wife, Ava. And here we go. On September 3rd, 1974, one of 3 contractors installing curb and gutter pulled a gas line apart under the Appleton State Bank in Dale. He was digging a storm sewer trench with a backhoe. Because he pulled the gas line apart, natural gas leaked into the basement of the bank, which was at this point a 73-year-old building. Nice old bank in town.
This doesn't sound like it's going to end very well.
The natural gas went into the bank, came into contact with the pilot light of the furnace.
This is not going to end well.
And caused an explosion at 12:50 p.m. So, a little afternoon. The assistant bank manager was Ava Clone. She was preparing to reopen the bank for business hours. Now, apparently at this time, they were closed for a lunch break.
Okay.
Which is very fortunate in this particular case. So she's preparing to open back. I don't know if they're closed 12 to 1 or 12:30 to 1. I don't know. But whatever the case is, they're closed at this moment. She's preparing to reopen. She's flung from the building by the force of the blast and died of head and chest injuries 5 hours later. She wasn't even supposed to be there that day because she was filling in for another employee who was home with a sick husband.
Did you write that line in there? She wasn't even supposed to be there today?
Yeah, I wrote that.
It's a reference to Clerks.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. She wasn't even supposed to be there that day because she was filling in for another employee.
Well played.
Another man named Herbert Reichman, 73, operated a nearby store. He suffered 2 broken legs and a shoulder injury. He just happened to be standing out front when the blast happened. Lawrence Harvey Gorges, age 47, had minor injuries from being tossed backwards by the blast. He was across the street standing in his driveway.
Holy crap.
He told the press, "All at once the whole bank blew this way. The whole top and everything else went with it. Somehow, none of the crewmen working outside of the bank were injured." That's weird to me, but, the guys actually digging the trench walked away just fine. Coincidentally, and this was not mentioned in the paper, coincidentally, Gorges, the guy who lives across the street and got kind of pushed back by the blast, was a cousin of Harold Clone. So he probably knew the assistant bank manager who died.
Okay.
I don't know that he did because, not like you always know every spouse of all your cousins, but in this small community, it's very possible.
It's also very possible they just knew each other because they live in Dale, and there's not that many people in Dale.
Correct. Correct. No, you're absolutely right. But I thought that was interesting that I was like, oh. And side note, this is not relevant to anything, but listeners might know this. Eric definitely knows this. When I put episodes together, I kind of like build little trees for people. Mm-hmm. It helps me kind of understand like the background of different individuals. So that's like how I know these two.
When you're talking trees, you're like talking about
family trees.
Yeah, like genealogy type stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I know that these people were cousins. But it was interesting. Like normally I do it because when you're doing mafia stuff, it helps because a lot of these guys are related to each other. It worked out interestingly in this episode because when you're working with such a small community as Dale, you see a lot of that too. Like
I would almost imagine it could be more than the mafia in a way.
Yeah, like they're not criminal connections, but there's pretty much like 2 families in Dale that you're related to one or the other. Mm-hmm. If you're not related to one or the other and you live in Dale, like why are you living in Dale? And obviously, somebody can email me and be like, I live in Dale and I'm not really. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be exceptions. But generally, I think if you live there, it's because your family always lived there. The explosion destroyed the bank and the post office next door. Executive Vice President Gilbert Reeling had no immediate estimate of the damage or the amount of money that got burned up in the bank. Fortunately, all the bank records were kept in the vault, which was bomb and fireproof. So nobody's records of deposits were lost or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Postal service was temporarily run out of Dale's town hall by the postmaster, Robert Cranky. And the Appleton State Bank business was run out of a trailer until both of these places could have new buildings constructed. Bank customers were encouraged to go to other branches of the Appleton State Bank, which they could find in Hortonville, Fremont, or Appleton.
Sounds like a big bank. I wonder what the Appleton State Bank became.
I'm so glad you asked.
No, you know that.
Yeah.
Ah. See, I was going for the Google button to figure it out.
Well, you can do the Google button because I know that Appleton State Bank became the Valley Bank.
Okay.
I don't know if Valley Bank still exists. Already the day after the blast, the bank vowed to begin rebuilding the bank and have the building open by December. So they promised to have the bank completely rebuilt within 3 months. It's really weird to me, like from reading. I found a variety of articles, and most of the articles were the same, but a few of them had slightly different quotes and things on that when I piece it together. But it was weird to me, like the focus seemed to almost be not at all on the lady who died in the blast, and almost entirely on, is the bank okay? And I'm like, I get that. Like, if I'm a customer of the bank, I'm going to be terribly concerned that the money I keep in the bank is gone. Like, I get that. But it's weird how much, to me, that overshadowed, like, this lady who died. And they basically just like, oh, yeah, by the way, the lady died. You got the Google? Can you?
I think that Valley Bank merged with M&I Bank.
That's likely.
And for anybody who doesn't know, M&I Bank is now, I believe, BMO Harris.
I believe so.
So, there's your train.
That's not surprising at all.
Wow, this is a really cool little thing, too, because it talks about everything that they have acquired. Like, this is Valley Bank and all the different acquisitions they made and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know what
cool.
you got. I've seen websites before that kind of like show how a bank is turned into another bank and you know, changes names and this and that. And it's pretty cool to see that. Although, yeah, pretty much when you reach the end, it's like, oh, it's BMO.
yeah.
Because everything's BMO now, but...
So anyway, sorry to disrupt, but I believe that would be the path it went.
Okay. Like, so. When I went through Dale, like, you know, yesterday, actually, when I went through Dale, like, I didn't see the bank. Like, not that I, like, was looking super hard, but I didn't see the bank. So I don't know what the current bank there is. But anyway, yeah, like, so that's, like, it blows up. This lady dies. The focus seems to be on rebuilding the bank, getting the bank back in order, and it's already back rebuilt and up 3 months later. Fancy new bank. But yeah, they seem to kind of overshadow that.
They don't really care about the fact that somebody died. Like, you couldn't really find anything too much about her or anything.
No, like everything I said on her background, like that's everything I could find on her. Like, I would have thought that for like the next day or two after, they would have like had people talking about how great she was and how important she was. Yeah, or
something, you know.
And they just kind of like glossed over it. They're like, yeah.
We're more focused on we need to get some banks in place now.
Yeah.
We need to get a bank in place in this town.
It was really weird to me. I was like, but anyway, so that's 1974. And as far as I can tell, that's the last major thing that ever happened in Dale.
Really?
Like I could find a lot of weird little things that happened in the beginning of the history, like forming it, but between the 1970s and today, like almost nothing comes up in the news. And I will say this was a hard one to research because when I'm researching Kaukauna, it's easy because I go to like my newspaper search and I type in Kaukauna. Mm-hmm. And I know every result I get is going to be about Kaukauna.
It might be about the town of Kaukauna, but that's about the difference you're going to get, right?
Right. If I go to a newspaper search and I search for Dale, I get a million random dudes named Dale.
He gets his dad's obituary.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So it was a challenge in that way. So I had to kind of, instead, I knew about the explosion because was the start of that was the core of the episode. So then I had to kind of like reverse engineer it. And instead of searching the city, I had to search like names I knew in the town and kind of build the history around the names. Which again, this this was fine because, as I said, the way that I do these anyway, where I kind of do like the biographical stuff, I can do that and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't do it that way, like, it would have been a real challenge to find things.
Yeah, you never really think about that, but I bet you if you wanted to write anything about Dale, it'd be a pain in the butt to do just because of the name of the town. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work well because it's too normal of a name.
Yeah, I mean, I've not ever done this. This is just a random example. If it's just a newspaper, so just go to Google and you type in Kaukauna tragedy, okay? You're going to get a Kaukauna tragedy. I don't know what you're going to get, but you'll get something. You type in Dale tragedy, you're not going to get a tragedy in Dale. You're going to get some random dude
that died
named Dale.
In some tragic way, right?
Yeah. So because of the name, it was difficult to kind of look it up. But anyway, yeah, that seems to be the last major thing that happened there. And then as you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the primary route through Dale was US 10, but it changed in 2003. So it's been over 20 years now already. And it got shifted over to Highway 96 when 10 got kind of moved, yeah. And I don't know, but I feel like that probably reduced the number of people going through Dale.
Oh, I'm sure it did greatly, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I drive through Dale now, which I don't do very often, but I just happened to go to that distillery recently, it doesn't seem to have affected Dale.
Yeah.
They seemed like, I mean, I guess Dale hasn't gotten bigger, but I wouldn't expect Dale to get bigger. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, it's a charming little place. I saw it. It was weird to me, and it shouldn't be weird to me. But I love seeing like how many kids I saw out playing and riding bikes and, doing all the stuff that you want kids to do. It had that feel to it where it wasn't quite caught up to our modern city living. Mm-hmm. And I say that in a complimentary way. Like they seem to really understand like the joys of being in the small town.
Right.
And I was like, this seems like a nice place to be.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I was very impressed with it. We ate food there, and the restaurant we ate at was quite good. And so, not much of a tragedy, but at least, hey, you got an episode from Dale.
I got it
under the belt.
I got an episode from Dale, and not only that, in researching this episode, I found another episode.
And are you ready to share anything about that episode?
Do you want me to?
Just like the high level of where it's going to be and what kind of we're looking.
Well, I'll give a little trajectory for people. So, in the next couple episodes, now I don't know what the status is of the UP one.
I gotta send an email. We'll do that after this.
Okay, so there'll be a UP episode coming up in the near future. In addition to that, I'm working on one for Menasha, so Menasha will be coming up. And then the one that grew out of the Dale episode, is actually going to be about Venezuela.
Okay, wow. Now we really have to, like, how do we go from Dale to finding a story in Venezuela?
You'll see, and I'll warn listeners right up front, it's going to be a lot more history than Mayhem. It's going to be another one of the history episodes. So if you're not into that, I'm sorry. But if you are into that, I think you're going to like it. It involves a very prominent man in Appleton whose name is not well known, but did a lot of things. There's a very famous landmark in Appleton. If you've lived in Appleton or lived in the Fox Cities at any time, you've seen the landmark, and the landmark is there because this guy put it there. So,
this sounds so interesting. I have a feeling it's going to be underwhelming, but it's going to be.
It's not going to be.
It's got me intrigued right now.
I promise you, it's not going to be. It'll be underwhelming if you want a violent, nasty murder.
Which you know I don't care about.
Yeah,
so.
then it'll be underwhelming. But if you want a story that involves a tragic death plus a large amount of history about the city of Appleton, it's going to be a great episode.
Nice. All right, cool. Then with that, I think, do you got anything else, or should we wrap this episode up?
That's it. I apologize to listeners if they didn't like this. I love the history episodes personally, but I know this specific one is kind of a lot of fluff because I had to sort of build a story around the incident. But it gave me a chance to look into the background of the town of Dale, and I learned a lot in the process. So personally, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So hopefully other people got something out of that.
And I think it's valuable. I mean, you know what? Everybody, I'm going to guess if you're 35 years or older, you've probably driven through Dale once. You might not even realize that you've done it.
It's a bold claim.
And it's not like, I mean, it's interesting to understand the roots of those places,
Yeah.
At least for me, it's really intriguing to see, why is that there? How did that come to be there?
See, that might be a bold claim because I would be willing to bet that other than yesterday, I've only been to Dale once in the last 20 years. And the only reason I was even there is because I went to a wedding at the Medina Wedding Chapel.
I say last 35 years because I believe if we do 35 years, 10 used to run by there.
Yeah.
And I just feel like most people have driven down 10 for something.
That could very well be.
So that's where I come with that number. So that's my
fair.
Argument for it.
That's fair. But it's funny because it's not. I live maybe 15 minutes away, but I have no reason to ever go that direction.
Yeah, exactly. Which is funny. So, all right. With that, we're going to wrap this episode up. We want to thank everybody for their continued support of the podcast. Gavin gave you a little bit into the some of the upcoming episodes that we have. So hang around and we'll get those out to you. And we will see everybody back in 2 weeks for the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.